Welcome to DAO Talk Interviews, a weekly podcast series that sits down with the IRL voices behind the online usernames of the leaders in the budding DAO ecosystem. Each week, we'll dive deep with an individual or individuals on what they're working on, what brought them into the DAO space, and so much more. Hosted by me, Tommy, and sometimes my friends, Frisian, Cool Horse Girl, Caden, and Ellie. Each episode is brought to you and powered by Tally.xyz, the home of DAO governance. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of DAO Talk Interviews. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to DAO Talk. This week we have a DAO Talk interview, and we're joined by Hill from Adventure Gold. Hill, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good, man. How are you, Tommy?
Doing well. For those who, we'll take people behind the curtain. This is actually the second time we've recorded this. We had some technical difficulties before, but it's actually going to be better this time because we recorded that maybe a month and a half ago. And since then, there's been DevCon. There's been a lot of exciting updates to the governance portion of Adventure Gold. So I'm really excited to talk about that. But Hill, for those who maybe are unfamiliar with Adventure Gold and your role in Adventure Gold, give us a quick intro on who you are, what your relationship is to Adventure Gold, and then we can dive into what it is and all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Sure. So Adventure Gold is the token that was airdropped to the Loot NFT back in 2021, I believe September. And so we are one of the first, or actually the first fear launch token that's being airdropped to an NFT. And for those of you who are not familiar with the Loot NFT, it was the first, I guess, fully on-chain NFT that has all of its metadata on the chain. And more interestingly, it's the first NFT that does not have a picture as profile. So basically, it's black background, white text, and you can do whatever you want with it. You can create derivatives, you can draw it up, visualize it, you can animate it in any way you want. It has a CC0 account license. So basically, it's free to use, very open, kind of ethos-based NFTs. And so Adventure Gold originally, when we just get started, was a useless fear launch token, to be honest. And then the community get together to decide what to do with it and what's the best utility for this token. And so I get involved in the process from basically day one or day two and design the tokenomics so that Adventure Gold can become an ecosystem token for the Loot NFT or the Loot community. And for the past 3 years, the community has been exploring what's the best utility or opportunity for the Loot NFT, and lots of us landed in the fully on-chain side of things. So now Adventure Gold has kind of transitioned towards being this ecosystem token that tries to bootstrap and really grow the fully on-chain game ecosystem. So fast forward to today, we have layer 2 custom made for fully on-chain games pending launch, and we have quite a few very exciting fully on-chain games lined up to bring joy and bring excitement to the on-chain world. And so, yeah, Adventure Gold serves multiple purposes in this case as a gas token for the layer 2, as a governance token for the whole ecosystem, as an incentive token for the users and developers in the ecosystem. So, yeah, exciting days.
I love it. I think, I don't know if I said this on the first recording, but Loot was actually like one of the first NFTs I ever was like involved with or ever was, was excited about on chain. What got you going back to Loot? Everyone's pretty familiar with it. If you aren't, you've definitely seen a derivative or, a throwback to it. It's literally just plain text on a plain background. It's, kind of like the first of its kind NFT project where there really are no instructions. It's just kind of like the playing cards and the base building blocks for whatever you want to build with it. What got you excited about Loot? And like, what was like you said, like, you started building out the tokenomics for Adventure Gold and the coin or the token itself, but what about the project got you the most excited about it?
I guess the most exciting thing about Loot is that when I first interact with it, it feels so unique. So there was nothing to do on the website. And when we just get started, there was no website. And the only thing you can do was you need to go to Etherscan, and you need to mint a Loot NFT straight from the contract. So you need to go to Etherscan and interact with the right contract function. And same thing happened when you need to claim AGLD. You head over to AGLD contract, put in your Loot I believe your Loot NFT number or like the kind of order number of it, and then you can see if you can mint the AGLD or not. Um, that's like quite a unique way to interact with an NFT or the token associated with it. All the other NFT have their own kind of website, and there's a whitelist you need to get in, and so the whole ethos of interaction is like very different from the other NFTs. And the more I dive into it, the more I realize that the NFT looks very simple from the start, but deep down in the smart contract there's like a whole complicated system of how these 8,000 different loot NFTs are related towards each other. We have different orders, we have different looks, we have different series, and they all eventually tie down to a very complicated story of adventurers a long time ago exploring a world and then going through different events. So although it looks very simple from the get-go, deep down it's a very complicated story, and then everything is on chain. So you can always, take this part from the story and then put that part out from the story and then construct a new story, construct a new character, and the design space is just immense. So that's why I jumped on the tokenomics bandwagon when Adventure Go was launched, because I thought this could have been the greatest experiment of token out there, like what the token can do, what the token is capable of. And it's just too bad to let this opportunity roll away.
Yeah, and you've talked a little bit about, and I think you're not giving you're humble about it, but you've played a massive role in like the tokenomics design of the Adventure Gold token. Can you dive a little bit deeper into, like you already said, what it got you excited about it? You dive in, kind of just like make yourself known in the community, right? No one really hired you. You kind of just like bootstrapped your way into it. What was the process like when you were designing the tokenomics model for the token, and what makes it so interesting and unique to the gaming ecosystem?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you kind of get started from my full-time job at the time, which is the research lead of 7X Ventures, where we were like venture funds for crypto in Asia. And then part of my job was to design or advise tokenomics for our portfolios. And so when we are designing tokenomics, the most basic thing we have to figure out is um, what does this token tries to achieve. And once we figure out the goal, it's now the process later on is much more easier, right? You can design what behavior you want people to do or get related with this token, and then whether you want to charge a small fee for some behavior or you want to incentivize some behavior. So the first problem we encounter when discussing about AGLD tokenomics is that whether it should be inflation or not. And so because AGLD was a free launch token, and initially there's a hard cap that's like, the per NFT, per loot NFT, you can mint a maximum of 10K AGLD. And so people are discussing whether we should just keep the current hard cap, which is 18 million. So there are 8,000 loot out there per NFT, you can mint 10K. So that means the total amount is 18 million. Or if you want to inflate it and use the inflated token to do something else. And throughout the discussion, I realized that most of the, I guess, discussions people were conducting or proposals people are discussing, they might just end up kill the token, right? So some people are proposing that we should just burn the key and keep this a pure meme coin. But then that would just kill the whole design space, right? So if you burn the key, you can't make changes to the token later on. So I wasn't super happy with that personally. And then another really popular proposal at the time was that people proposed to mass inflate it. So people are saying instead of only loot can mint AGLD, how about we include other tokens and other NFTs that can also mint 10K AGLD a piece. And that just means, obviously better distribution, but then that would just mass inflate the token and it will just dump the price to zero. And basically that's very dangerous especially for a new token such as AGLD. So what's the first proposal I make, and the one that I try really hard to push from the get-go, was that we do a mild inflation. So instead of no inflation, which will kill the design space, or mass inflation, which will kill the token price, I propose a mild inflation, which is that we have 10% inflation in the first year. So that's basically means minting 8 million more. And then we have halvenings every single year. So 8 million tokens in the first year. That means we will mint 4 million tokens in the second year, 2 million tokens in the third year. And eventually we gradually approach 20% soft cap. So which means that we the maximum amount possible forever is 20%. So 20% out of 18 million, that's 16 million. However, we'll never get to 96 million. We'll just gradually approach as time goes on. And with the newly minted or inflated token, we can use that to incentivize and grow the ecosystem. And it wouldn't also break the bank. It wouldn't also break the bank if you look at the trading volume of AGLD. Even if we have a few million more tokens, that will just basically be consumed within a day. The trading volume is pretty insane, thanks to we have a pretty decent exchange listings. And so yeah, that's my original proposal, and all the subsequent proposal comes from how do we utilize the newly inflated token.
Yeah, a lot of thought. I've been doing a bunch of content on the back end for this, so I'm familiar with it. But you just gave a great description of the entire process. But a lot of detail and a lot of thought has gone into the tokenomic structure and design of this. And for those who are listening, and that's a lot, and they want to dive a little bit deeper into it because I was kind of high level. We have an article coming out that has the entire timeline of that everything Hill just mentioned, and you can actually go look at the forum proposals that were passed, and all the technical implementations and changes that were made there. So definitely go look at that. But that's kind of like the history of Adventure Gold and the tokenomics and the fair launch and kind of setting the stage for this next stage of the ecosystem, which is governance, which is obviously, why we're on DAO Talk with Tally and governance and on-chain governance. What was the initial thought process of, okay, we've launched the token, now it's time for governance? What spurred that? And then talk a little bit about what that process has been like from, okay, we need on-chain governance. Did you have any before? Is it starting from zero? And what does that look like moving forward?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as a decentralized community, we're basically built on governance. So initially, we used literally two platforms. The first one is our forum called the Loot Forum, and that's where basically people post their ideas and we discuss about their ideas, including tokenomics. And the actual kind of governance or voting kind of platform we use was Snapshot. So if you host a wallet in your if you host AGLD in your wallet, you can always vote on Snapshot to express whether you like something or not. But then Snapshot is off the chain, right? So it cannot execute a transaction about the proposal for you. So eventually, after the proposal passed on Snapshot, you have to write out the smart contracts, do the audit, and then in AGLD case, we need to go back to the AGLD multisig to execute the transaction or implement the changes about AGLD. And so this is like background for AGLD, but basically the controller for AGLD smart contract was a multisig that's controlled by the token creator and a few of the quite important figures in crypto who are fear enough to hold this important multi-sig key for the community. So after we passed the first proposal, we began to kind of draft out the smart contract and then try to implement it through this way. But however, we come across quite a few hurdles. So first of all, we realized that it's not efficient if we were to always do things in this way, because the first transaction we tried to implement basically took us at least a few months to get some decent consensus within the multi-sig signers. And then we realized, hey, look, if we were to implement more changes, like every month or something, it would basically be impossible because all the back and forth communication took us like 3 months from now. And then so we realized that this is not something that's very flexible, and especially a few months after the AGLD tokens launched, we are pretty much in the start of a bear market, and things are, I guess, shifting gears more often than not. And we keep having new ideas that we want to discuss with people, and then we realize, hey, look, if we just rely on this multisig, first of all, from a flexibility standpoint, it doesn't work. And because anything you want to change with AGLD, whether it's as big as you want to change the supply, or as small as you want to decide who gets this $1,000 grant or something, if everything has to go to the multisig, it just wouldn't work. We'll just get stuck all the time. So something we began to think about is how can we ensure the community actually has sovereignty when it comes to the governance and implementing the changes that's being decided by governance. The second thing is that multisig is never secured enough. It might seem secured enough in week 1, week 2, but then very soon we realize, hey, look, we are already a token that has a pretty decent market cap, and then we have a bunch of communities from exchanges all over the world. We are lucky enough to get us onto Binance and Coinbase in the first month. And then more recently, we got onto Outbit, which is the largest exchange in Korea. And then so keeping all those money being decided by a multisig, it just does not seem right. And I understand a lot of the projects are on the multisig, but usually it's only controlling like a small part of the project, right? It's either part of the chain or part of the treasury. But then in our original case, it was the whole token. So it just does not seem secure enough for us to implement a really kind of major changes, such as changing the supply or having this mild inflation. So eventually we decided, you know what, we are not going to implement the changes and keep things as they are until we find a good solution for this security thing on governance. So yeah, that's how we come across Tally. And basically, we were very happy with what Tally has to offer and the track record of Tally. So we're quite excited to jump on board.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. We used to do our weekly DAO Talk podcast where we'd cover like ecosystem stuff, and all the negative news around on-chain governance was always stemming from, some DAO in air quotes that was really just a multi-sig with 4 to 5 people, which, is not always a bad thing, right? If, like you said, it's trusted people, but at the end of the day, humans are humans and things change. So I commend you guys for, taking the necessary steps. And I'm not surprised based on how much effort and care you put into the tokenomics design and making sure everything is running smoothly. You really care about the Loot ecosystem, about the Adventure World ecosystem. So very exciting stuff coming down the pipeline. We're obviously talking because governance is launching soon. Is there anything you can share about, someone who's listening to this, maybe they're not a part of the ecosystem or they are a part of the ecosystem? What should they be excited about? How can they get involved with governing the Adventure Gold ecosystem, and why is it important? Like, what is your pitch to them?
Sure. We have big dreams for fully on-chain games. That's like the big summary for the whole thing. But basically, the governance of AGLD will decide, first of all, the tokenomics, like in a quite infrequent ways. We don't want to change tokenomics every single month. So very soon after the official deployment of our contract on Tally is done, our first proposal will be the inflation proposal. And this is obviously echoing the historical proposal that we passed, that the community agrees on, and basically about the mild inflation. So that's like the biggest thing that will happen after we have governance fully established, fully on chain. And straight after that, it's about how do we distribute the newly minted token or the inflation token. And long story short, we're going to distribute those tokens towards growing the fully on-chain game ecosystem on Adventure Layer. So Adventure Layer is our layer 2 that's custom made for fully on-chain games. Like we wish we could use another chain. It's not our original specialty to build a chain, but then eventually we realize, fully on-chain game is just so demanding on the blockchain that it's basically impossible to run things as smoothly as we want to on basically any other chain. And so we decided to build our own adventure layer. And at least now in testnet, it's scalable enough to host the most complicated launching games nowadays. So we're quite happy with that. But then the most exciting things that the community can participate in is how we plan to grow the ecosystem. And we figured that, a fully on-chain game is basically the holy grail for on-chain applications, right? Because a game is like one of the most complicated stuff human beings have ever made. And basically, if you look at the kind of history of human technology, whenever a new piece of technology comes out, people always try to do some kind of gaming on there. It's the first thing people build when the calculator comes out. It's the first thing that people build when PC comes out. It's also the first thing people try to get built when internet comes out. And usually when people try to build games on a new technology stack, it just breaks the technology stack. The technology stack is just not scalable enough, and that's what pushed people towards scaling out the infrastructure. And we believe we're seeing similar things in blockchain, right? It's a new infrastructure that it's basically a new computer that you can do whatever you want on it. And then we just haven't seen that people deploy like proper complicated on-chain games on there. And there are quite a few simple ones. People can argue CryptoKitty is a game. People can argue that FOMO 3D is a game. But then there's no proper game on it, like the traditional sense of games on it yet. And so the way we envision how fully on-chain game is going to grow is that we believe fully on-chain games, in order to survive in crypto, should feel like a financial market. And this is from trial and error for the past 3 years, even longer, considering the predecessors of GameFi and other kind of on-chain gaming or on-chain gaming related projects, that we believe in order to find product market fit in crypto, we have to learn from the use case that already find product market fit in crypto, which is financial market. So I'm sure everyone's familiar with trading, DeFi, ICO, or even meme coin trading recently. They are all essentially financial market options in crypto. And for gaming, we're just not finding that product market fit yet. And after a tremendous amount of trial and error, we believe if a game feels like a financial market, that gives the game a best chance to find product market fit in crypto. And essentially, what we are trying to do is, first of all, find this kind of game, and we already find a few. And then after we find it, after we deploy it on the chain, we want to run it or incentivize it or grow it like a financial applications. So in that sense, we're going to give out incentive to users of the game or players, as if we're giving incentives to a DeFi platform. So that means we're incentivizing playing the game. That means we're incentivizing providing liquidity to the game. That means we're incentivizing the competitive behavior that a user will conduct in a financial market. But just in our context, it will be in a game. So, if you see any games out there that might fit into this category, we have a whole thesis paper about how a game should look like a financial market. So go check that out. And if you see anything like that, feel free to invite them towards the Adventure Go ecosystem. Feel free to submit a grant application so that we can support the game. Or, if you see any game interested in the Adventure Layer ecosystem, hop on and play, and then you'll get the rewards as if you're participating in a DeFi protocol. And obviously, it'll be great if you hold AGLD, you can always decide which project or which game you want to support, you want to direct our treasury spending into. So that's what the governance platform is going to be about.
I love it. I love it. That's a great way to wrap that up. If you're listening to this, obviously governance will be live. So we'll link everything we've talked about in the show notes below. So definitely go check out, if there's anything that piqued your interest that Hill or I mentioned, go check that out in the show notes and get involved. Hill, thank you so much for recording for a second time. This was honestly better the second time. So I'm glad we were able to do it again, and I'm excited to see the adventure code ecosystem grow, and implement on-chain governance and take it to the next level. So thank you again, my friend.
Beautiful. I appreciate it as well, Tommy.